Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is part 4 in our 5-part series for new members that goes through just about all aspects of BNI Connect from a member perspective. But I break it down into kind of short little 30-minute segments so that you guys don't get too bored with it and so that you can retain the information a little bit better going forward. If you recall, we started out this series last week on Tuesday with how to fill out your profile and a little bit of background information about BNI Connect. Followed that up on Wednesday with how to use the online slips, so entering referrals and one-to-ones and things like that. And then Thursday we talked about kind of the social media, almost LinkedIn side of BNI Connect, where we can connect with other people and use this global system that we have. Today, what we're going to talk about is going just a little bit deeper into the system. We're going to go to some of those scary places beyond the home page and take a look at what else BNI Connect has to offer as far as, for those data geeks out there, the people that really like to crunch numbers and see the statistics for your chapter and other useful information like that. We're going to show you where all that is hidden in the system. And then tomorrow, we're going to step through the visitor process. After that, we'll go on with our leadership team series of webinars. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started with today's content. First of which, as I mentioned, this is a 30-minute webinar. We really try to be respectful of everybody's time. And if you do need to leave right away for that next appointment at the bottom of the hour, we will try to get through, or we always get through all of the content portion of it before then. Now, that said, if you're with me today, it is February 13th, 2017. Then you're on a live webinar. So that means that you can ask questions. And I love questions. I will stay here on this webinar until every single one of your questions have been answered. So feel free to ask anything you want to about BNI Connect, and I will be happy to answer it. Now, if you happen to be listening on a day other than February 13th, it means that you are listening to a recording. So that means that we do record all of these webinars. We try to make them available in multiple different places. They are hosted on our YouTube channel, so that's youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Again, that's youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. You can also find it on the support site. Now, the place to get to the support site is by just clicking this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner. That will take you over to the support site, and you can look through the videos there. You'll find them in the live and recorded webinars section. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the BNI Connect tools and reports. Now, again, this is the home screen. So this is your day-to-day activity of everything that you're doing. And there are some very useful things on this page, but they're mostly, focused on you and your personal statistics. So you can review all the slips that you've been putting in, for example. You can also track your referrals that you receive electronically. Of course, there's the My BNI Business up here and the My Personal Participation Report. So most of the stuff we went over in our webinar on the online slip, so I'm not going to go too far into it today. But there are other things that happen here in BNI Connect beyond the homepage. Of course, there's this My Network over here, and the My Network is going to be all of those networking components, really the social media side of BNI Connect. Connections, groups, shared documents, testimonials, events, and the internal messaging system. But there is more to BNI Connect than just that, because BNI Connect is also the management tool for the entire organization. So we have tons of other stuff in the system. Now, the places that we hide all that stuff is going to be up here under the menu items along the top. Now, first things first, depending on your level in BNI Connect will depend on how much of these menu items you see. For example, if I'm logged in right now as an admin, so I pretty much see everything that's available in the system at all the levels. However, you may not see all of the things that I see in your role as a member, but I do know that we have, for example, on this call, we have some executive directors, we do have some regional administrators, and I know that we also have a couple of director consultants on the call with us today. So your views are all going to be slightly different, but the system, everything's always in the same place, it's just whether or not you can see it. So that said, there are all of these items along the top: network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. And again, if you are just getting started in BNI, you may actually only see, this is me logged in as my good friend Marky Mark from the BNI Burr chapter in Antarctica. So you may only see, for example, network, operations, and reports. And again, don't panic. That's perfectly normal. Now, the way that I remember where stuff is in BNI Connect, because it is a big system, there's a lot of stuff in here. The network is going to be your networking components. Again, those groups, the connections, the testimonials. Operations is the day-to-day management of chapters and visitors, and it's really, that's the data entry part of BNI Connect. So if you're ever looking at like enter something or do something in BNI Connect, most of the time you are going to go to operations in order to find that. On the other hand, reports are read only. So reports is where you go to pull information back out. So operations is input, reports is output. Now, most people on the call today are not going to have access to tools or admin. Tools are special functions. If you are on the leadership team or you become the chapter webmaster, that's where you would go to manage your chapter website, for example. We do a webinar on that later this month. And then the admin section is going to be really, it's more permissions and roles. And again, we're not going to really get into any of that today either. I'm going to concentrate on these two things, operations and reports. So let's just poke in here and find out what is in these menus. Let's go to Operations Chapter first and take a look at the various options under this menu. So the first thing that we'll see is that we'll have all of the menu items on the left-hand side, and then once you click on a menu item, you'll see that the options change. Now, most of this stuff is going to be for leadership teams. So, for example, managing the meeting, which you probably don't see on your screen, but that's really where the vice president is going to go to enter those weekly POMS reports. And that's where the secretary treasurer is going to go in order to update the speaker rotation. Same thing with the mentoring program. That's where the mentors will go. However, there are a couple of tools under here that are very, very useful to members, to just you as a regular member in the chapter. So I just want to show you those couple of things. The first one is if you go to the Create Email option, there's a couple of different tools in here that are very useful. The first of which is Email My Chapter. Now, the other thing that you may notice is that in front of a lot of these menu items, there's a little question mark. If you're not sure what an item is, just click that question mark. That will take you over to the support site and right to the help article for what that option is all about. So what's this Create Email Your Chapter option all about? It'll tell you how to get there, what to verify, what it's going to do, what it's going to look like. So if you're looking for more information or you're not sure about something, you need an explanation, click on that question mark. Otherwise, just click on the words and that will take you into the function. Now, the Email My Chapter, very simple tool, but very, very useful. If you need to get in touch with your chapter, you can use this Email My Chapter and it will give you the most current email address list. Now, I can remember before BNI Connect, and probably some people still do this, you need to get an email out to the chapter, so you go to your email, look through all your saved messages and try to find the most recent one that went out to the whole group. Then you hit reply all and send that message out to everybody, right? Well, the problem is that half of the time it's not the right list of people. Some new members might have joined the chapter since that message was sent, and there might be some people that have left the chapter since then. So you always end up getting complaints, well, take me off your email list, or how come I didn't get it? With this one, you can be sure that it is the most up-to-date list. And all you have to do is you can highlight all of these, right-click, and choose Copy. Just start up a new message in whatever email program you prefer. And there you go. You can type out your message. I recommend putting everybody here in the BCC line. And the reason I recommend that is it does cut down on the extra communications. So a lot of times people will end up hitting reply all just to say, yeah, I got your message. And that will annoy, a chapter of 30 or 40 or 50 people when those are just getting 50 replies from the members of your chapter. So I do recommend putting them in the BCC line. Everybody will still get a copy, but they won't be able to hit that reply all button. All right, so that's under create email. Now the next thing that's really useful under here, and I'm going to go into this more in detail tomorrow, but the second option down is email visitor invitation. And if you click on email visitor invitation, this is a way to get a message out to a potential visitor of your chapter. And the way it works is this is designed to be a follow-up to a verbal invitation. So let's say that you're out at a networking event and you bump into somebody that you think would benefit from coming and visiting a chapter meeting. What you can say to them is, well, do you mind if I send you an invitation? That way you don't have to go into big detail about what BNI is all about. They don't have to write down the address or the location or anything. You can just send it to them right away. And with the app that's going to be coming out in a couple of months, you'll be able to just do that right from your cell phone as well. So here, we're just going to put in their name and their company and their email address. So let's say that I was going to invite John Smith from Smith Co. Email address. Now I'm going to put my own email address in here so you guys can see what it looks like. Keep in mind that you will be automatically carbon copied on every message that you send. That way you know when it went out and you also know that it was successfully delivered. You can see what it says and whether there's been any changes to it as well. Or if you'd like to test it out, just go in and send one to yourself. These are not tracked. Nobody's watching to see how many invitations are going out or anything like that. It's just a standalone way to get a nice BNI branded invitation out there. Now the personal message part of this is really your place to say something to this person to let them know that this is not a piece of spam, that this is the invitation that I promised you, basically. So I usually like to say something like, it was great meeting you at the networking event. Here is the BNI invitation that I promised. Okay, and then I click send. That's all there is to it. This will just send that email out from there. And again, you will get a carbon copy of it. So I should be getting that in my inbox in 5, 4, even sooner than that. Here it is. So you can see here is the message that I put in. It was great meeting you at the networking event. Here's the BNI invitation that I promised. You'll notice that it is CC'd to your email address. So whatever email address you have in BNI Connect, you will get a copy of that. Also keep in mind is that if they hit reply, the reply will go to you. This then has a nice graphic in here. How will you grow your business? This is all verbiage that the marketing team at BNI headquarters has put together, explaining what BNI is all about, what BNI Connect is, what you can learn more about BNI as well. They have some great testimonials and videos and links that they can find all about BNI. But the most important part is that over on the right-hand side here, you can see that it has the venue address. So none of us can really remember the actual address of our chapter meeting. This is a way that they can get it in their hands, and they can probably just use Google Maps in order to get there. And then the most important part of this is the button right here that says RSVP Now. That allows them to register themselves for the meeting. And all they have to do is to go in and fill out their information. They'll get a confirmation. The chapter will get a reminder. They'll get a reminder 2 days before the meeting. And this will greatly increase the chances that the visitor will actually attend the meeting. And I'm going to go into this in full detail in tomorrow's webinar. So the other things that you might be interested under here, there is also the goals program. If your chapter is using the BNI goals program, you can follow along with your leadership team. You won't have the ability to enter goals, but most people have the ability to view the chapter goals. So I can choose the 6-month BNI period, October through April, and we can see how we're doing with the goals that we've set. All right, so that is the operations menu. As I said, most of the other things under here are going to be specific to leadership teams. If you're really interested in those, we will be doing a leadership team tools and reports webinar in just a couple of days. But let's go and look at the reports now. So let's take, and this is really where there's a lot of just data in the reports, tons and tons of information. So we'll take a look through some of these and see what we can find out. For this one, what I'd like to do is to switch over to my own personal chapter so you guys can see some real information as opposed to all the stuff just from Antarctica here. So I'm in Rhode Island and I am in the Wakefield chapter. So let's take a look at these reports. Now, I'm not going to go through every single report. We only have about, I think 12, 13 minutes left in today's session. And as promised, I like to be respectful of people's time. So I want to end at least the content portion before we get into questions right by the bottom of the hour. That said, there are at least a half a dozen reports that I think you should really familiarize yourself with. But the thing about the reports, you can't break them. They're just reports. So I strongly recommend that you just go through and click on them. See what they have in them. And if you have any questions about them whatsoever, please feel free to send us an email at support@bniconnect.com, and we'd be happy to run through the data with you. You can also click on the question mark up here on any of these to get a little bit more of an explanation of what the report does and what it's there for. So one of the first reports I want to show you is actually the second report down, and that is the chapter roster report. This is going to seem like a no-brainer. It is the roster for your chapter, so it's all your chapter members. What I like about this report, there's a couple of kind of like little hidden gems in this report that I like. The first of which is, obviously, the top is going to show all of your officers, and the bottom is going to show the rest of your chapter. And this is a great way to find out who is in what position. Because a lot of times, as you guys know, that the membership committee, for example, is a really important part of the chapter because they help to settle any disputes. And if a member is renewing or a member is going to be joining the group, that's where you can voice your opinion, is to the membership committee. But until you have a problem, most of us don't remember who's on the membership committee. Well, this is where we can go and find out who all of the people are on the membership committee. And also, if you have a bigger problem, you can also find out who your director consultant is and their contact information. And if I scroll down, obviously this is going to show me the rest of my chapter, what classification they are, what company they are, what their phone number is. You can print this out, of course, and use this as your own phone list. But the other part of this report that I really like is right here, data from the last 90 days. And this is an abbreviated version of the PALMS report. For those of you that may not know what the PALMS report is, PALMS stands, it's always been the attendance report effectively. PALMS is the different attendance characteristics: present, absent, late, medical, and substitute. But we also record other things, of course, in BNI, such as referrals given, referrals received, number of visitors that you bring to a chapter. And that's what these are. So this is showing each person's last 90 days worth of activity. So you can see how many referrals they've given, how many referrals they've received. V is for how many visitors they've brought to the meeting. One-to-ones are how many one-to-one meetings they've had. L is the number of times they've been late, and absent is the number of times they've been absent. What I like to do with this list is to kind of just, look through the list and see if there's anybody that might be struggling in the chapter, especially when it comes to one-to-ones. We all got to do one-to-ones. Find somebody that you can help out and make sure you find people in your contact sphere to do one-to-ones with as well. All right, I'm going to skip a couple more reports down here and go to the meeting notes report. Now this one, at first glance, is pretty much going to look exactly like the roster report, right? So I print this out and hey, there's the list of people in my chapter again. This one has a different purpose though. And if you've ever wondered how you can give better referrals and give more referrals, one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that you are paying attention during the meeting. Most importantly, when people are giving their weekly presentations, it's a great idea to write that information down. A lot of times we don't have the opportunity to give that referral until we may see that referral again. So for example, if somebody at my chapter meeting asks to meet John Smith from Smith Co., well, I happen to know John Smith from Smith Co. I may not know him well enough to call him on the phone right then and there, but if I saw him at a networking event, maybe I'd feel comfortable enough to say, hey, you know what? Somebody in my networking group was asking about, your business the other day, and be able to break the ice. So sometimes they don't happen right away. And quite honestly, we have 44 members in our group. My memory is just not that good. I can't possibly remember what every single person asked for every single week. So this will allow you to keep a history of that. And really just the act of writing it down will help you to remember it. Now you can either print this out, and when it prints out, it just prints out like a note page. So you can take those notes during the meeting. Now, if you say, oh, I don't want it to print on 2 pages, or I don't like the font's too big, the font's too small, the font's not right, you can bring it out to Excel and then do whatever you want with it. Almost every report in BNI Connect can be exported in 2 different ways. You'll notice we have 2 buttons here that say export. Export without headers, and then export. The export button will give you everything that's on the page. Okay, so if I click export, this is going to bring this out to Excel. And you can see this has all this information up at the top. So when was this report run, and who is the person that the report was run by, and what chapter was it for, and what region. So that information is actually pretty helpful if I'm just going to save this file on my computer. That way when I go back to it at a future time, I can look at it and say, oh, yeah, this was our the roster as of February 13th. Great. However, if you want to use this like a spreadsheet, having all this stuff at the top makes it really difficult to sort and to resize the columns because there's all these merged cells and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's why we have this export without headers. And what that'll do is just give you the data. So here we can see now we have first name, last name, company, and notes without all that stuff at the top. So if I wanted to, for example, by the way, I love this format as table button. I can choose a color scheme here, and it adds all these little buttons, so I can now sort this by first name instead of by last name, or maybe I even want to sort it by company name. And you know what? This is nowhere near enough space to take notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that notes field a little bit bigger and be able to have more space to take notes. Or maybe I just want to save this as an electronic file, and I can even take notes during the meeting, on my tablet or my my laptop or whatever else I would like to do. And then, of course, you can save it if you want to on your computer and have access to that at a later time. So again, that's the meeting notes report. Now, the next report in the list, I'm not going to skip one this time. The next report is the summary POMS report. And again, this is the bread and butter report for the chapter. This is where we're really going to find the statistical information for our group. Now, if I just open it up like this and I click go, this is going to show me the last 6 months of activity, the last completed 6 months. So that means it's showing us through the end of January. And here we can see all the current members of our chapter and what their contributions, what their activity has been over the last 6 months. And of course, we can export this, we can print it, whatever we'd like to do with it. But the other things is, you may not want to just look at the last 6 months. Maybe you want to look at all of last year's activity. Sure, you can do that. Just change the dates. So I can go back to, let's say, January of 2016, and I'm going to go through December 31st of 2016. So I'm going to look at the entire year. Now you'll notice there's one other option here. It says show dropped member names. If I click go, this is just going to show me all the people that are still in the chapter, the people that are active today. Now, the contributions, this total line, if I actually added all these numbers up, it would not equal this number because it's only hiding the names of the people on this list that are no longer a member of the chapter. Their contributions are still included in the chapter total. I could, though, look at all members. And then it would include people that are also no longer in the chapter. Now, sometimes I like to do this just to see, even maybe it's time to invite a member that's no longer a member back to the chapter. So it's a useful report for that. All right, we're just about at the bottom of the hour, but there's a couple of other useful reports in here. For example, I would recommend taking a look at the Personal Palms report. That's the same as your personal participation report on the home page, except you can run this for any member in the chapter. And you can also run it for yourself for a longer period of time, as opposed to just the 1 year that it has on the home screen. The Member Details report is also very helpful for looking up the bio information for other people in your chapter. For example, before you do a one-to-one with somebody, it would be great to do a gains exchange. Well, you can always just go look at their profile, or you can also send them yours. The best way to do that is to go here, pick yourself from the list, and now you can copy and paste this right into an Excel file, into an email, or of course you can export or print that out. And exchanging that gains profile before a one-to-one will certainly turbocharge that one-to-one. All right, and as I said, just poke through these reports. There really is some great information within all of the reports here. But before we get to the bottom of the hour, and there's one last little thing that I want to show you. On your home screen, you should see My BNI Business, My Network, and then below that, a thing that says Chapter Shortcuts. What this Chapter Shortcuts is your personal shortcut menu to your favorite things in BNI Connect. So that means that as you find those reports that you really like to use most often, or let's say that you do the email my chapter function all the time, or that you'd like to follow along with the goals more regularly, or you really like that visitor invitation, you can put those into your chapter shortcuts. So I can click the configure button, and basically everything that's on the left-hand side here is in my shortcut menu, which is pretty much everything right now. I can take stuff out by clicking on the X and have fewer things in my shortcut menu. If I put a little checkbox in any of these things, like let's say email my chapter and email a visitor invitation, and let's say the Personal Palms report and the member details. So I can put those in and let's say I want this visitor invitation at the top, so I'm going to drag and drop that up to the top, and I'm going to submit these changes. When I close out, the screen's going to refresh once, and now just my favorites are there. Now this is really great for another reason, because you'll notice there's no screen refresh. Like the whole screen doesn't refresh when I go back and forth. So if I go to chapter shortcuts and click on email my chapter, that pops up right away. That saves probably 3, 4, 5 clicks. So I don't have to go to operations, chapter, create email, email my chapter. I can just flip over to chapter shortcuts and then click on email my chapter. So there's a lot of clicks that are saved in that process, as well as the time from the screen refreshes. All right, so we are at the bottom of the hour, and as promised, what I'd like to do is to thank everybody for being here today. If you do have to go right away, just remember this is being recorded. You can always come back and watch it at a later time. But I would like to open this up for questions. Does anybody have any questions at all about BNI Connect? I'd love to answer those questions now. Holly says, is there an individual member traffic lights report? Some regions also refer to that as the Power of One report. And actually, no, that is something that is done on a region by region basis. And right now it's done on an Excel spreadsheet, partially because different regions slightly do it differently and they've modified it over the years. So that is not directly in BNI Connect. However, most regions that do this will upload the file into the documents. So for example, if you go to My Network, and then in the documents, you can see this is my personal region, our personal documents, and you can see that we upload the traffic lights there. If I click on More, I can see all of these files that my region has uploaded. All right, so that's the best place to look for it if your region is partaking in the chapter traffic lights. I'm sorry, the member traffic lights. Cool. What other questions? Any questions? Again, the only silly question is the unasked question. All right. It looks like we covered all of the materials today. So that's it. I'm going to say thank you guys again for being here with me today. A good referral for me is to please remember that we have a webinar tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the inviting and registering visitors. So we're going to go deep into that visitor process and all the different emails and things that happens as part of inviting and registering visitors, why it's a really good reason to do so. In the meantime, have an absolutely wonderful rest of your Monday and happy connecting.